contrast. So let's start with the contrast ratio. It's a parameter that you can find easily in every display datasheet. That is something that we measure in a factory and give, let's say, to the customer as a reference number. So the contrast that we see in example datasheets here from our datasheets are, couple of hundreds, and I would say this is the standard for industrial type displays. Let's say from maybe like low end will be 300 to 500, and high end will be maybe 1,000 to 2,000 as a value of contrast. And it's a very good number. If we will have a display with such high contrast, then we see image perfectly actually. It's a little bit different number than you can see if you will buy a TV. If you will go to the let's say specification of a TV, you may find the number like even 1 to 1 million of a contrast. But it's usually a little bit tricky number and not the number that is, let's say, particularly most important to have, because as we will see on the next slides, the real contrast, like in real world, it's a way lower than the numbers even here for industrial, and could be hundreds, thousands times lower than you can see in a TV specification, and still you see the contrast clear. They measure it different. Maybe I will talk about it later. Yes. So basically, first thing, what is the contrast? Is just the ratio between the bright side or the bright parts of a display to the dark parts. Yeah. So this is like pretty simple to measure. So we just measure the brightness. If we will if we imagine this is a display, we can measure the white part, how many candelas is there. Let's say it will be 1,000 candela display or something like that. And then having the backlight on and the pixels blocked, that is the black color here, we will measure the brightness, because some brightness is here, of course. If we will, for example, switch off the light, make the display entirely black, but not switch off the backlight will be still on, we will see that it's actually, there is some light coming out of it. Because the pixels are not perfect, they are not perfectly blocking the light. So maybe it could be like we have 1,000 candela here and maybe 10 candela here. Yes. So because it's a very big difference between them, we still see this black and this we see white, but actually this is not the perfect black. In some TVs, we spoke about it last time, about OLED TV from LG, for example. There the contrast can be very high, because when the OLED TV has the pixels off, they are not emitting any light. That means they are really black. That's why I told you, go and see this kind of TV, because it's a different kind of experience. If you have a dark background, it's really dark, it's black. It's not something that we are used to from normal TV that is a TFT. So this black is no black. That's why we have some contrast that is like, couple of hundreds or 1,000 or 1,000,000, depend how you measure that. Yes. So going more into the details, we talk something like the real contrast, we call it effective contrast ratio. Yes. So in our data sheet we will have a CR, that is a contrast ratio. It's like a perfect condition factory value. That means we measure it in a dark room without any reflections, and we just measure the white part of the screen and the dark part of the screen without any reflections. But in real world we have a light, like in this room we have a light, or outdoor we have a lot of light. That's why we'll talk about it more, that will be connected with the sunlight. Then we have reflections, like every surface reflect. If it's not like a true black surface, then we have reflections. And reflections are adding the brightness to the surface. Yes, so it's adding the let's say to the bright part, but it's adding to the black part, like the dark part, which is destroying the contrast, or like lowering the contrast a lot. So here we have some numbers, and as you see, they are very low. Yes, comparing to the data sheet that we have seen before, it was like 1 to 500, or I even told you 1 to 1 million from a TV maybe specification. And here we have only 1 to 2 or 3, 4, and up to 20. And you can see that like reasonable maybe between 5. 5 is okay contrast, and most of the things we see something like 5 to 10. As you see, like if it's 10, it's very readable, yes, and if it's 15, it's outstanding, and 20 is totally awesome, excellent. Maybe what you see right now here on this screen could be like 1 to 15, yes, or 1 to 10 only contrast, and still we see the perfect image. We are very good at contrast as humans to see the differences. And if we go, of course, too low, close to 1, then we don't see, yes, because the values are becoming equal of the bright and dark, yes. So this is the first thing. So the real contrast is way lower than what we see in the specification. That's why the contrast itself in a specification is not the most important part for bright environment, yes. If we work in a dark environment, maybe we will look in the contrast, and let's say display that would be 1 to 1000 would be better than display that is 1 to 500. But in the real case, real life case, when we have a bright environment, then these two displays will look pretty much similar and will be readable similar, because the real numbers will be way lower. It's connected actually with other factors, not the contrast itself, yes. So here we have a little bit more, some calculations. So as you can see, if we take the typical newspaper, we can expect contrast 20 to 1 in the sunlight, which is very low, yes, again, but perfectly readable, and we would say that the newspaper is one of the best that you can see and clearly read. And then we have some information about the notebook, that the brightness is lower, and some formula that is calculated here. We will go into details of how to calculate later, but as you can see, with the typical notebook, that will be 200, maybe 300 candela brightness. Nowadays the notebooks are going into higher brightness, then we can expect very low contrast, yes? So that's why it's very hard to read